Hello, welcome to Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the gym. It's episode 204. I don't know, ever since I skipped episode 200, I've kind of lost track. Anyways, today I'm going to be reviewing the new Patricia Taxxon album, Foley. And, she releases an album basically every month, and it's been my idea to review every album as it comes out. I think I've been doing pretty well. I missed the first month, although she missed a month last month. So there you go. It all kind of evens out. And I want to talk a little bit about one of the principles of the show, of this show. I sort of tried my best to treat artists as people who make art, and not necessarily as human beings with lives. And I try not to get too much into biography, minimal biography usually. And not always. Obviously, my recent essays on Kanye are very biography heavy. But in general, I try to treat art just as it is. And that's been a particularly interesting thing to do with Patricia Taxxon. She has a huge social media presence, apparently on YouTube. And that's why apparently a lot of people discover her. My friend Gabe told me about her, and so that's how I discovered Patricia Taxxon. That was it. It wasn't like I was on some kind of, bread tubey whatever thing. It was just kind of like, okay, I'll check out this music. Gabe's a cool guy. So I made this mistake of subscribing to Patricia Taxxon's Twitter. So a couple months ago, I started trying to do more stuff on Twitter with the show, and so I subscribed to every artist I reviewed. And it really colored the way that I saw Patricia Taxxon's music, because she comes across on Twitter as just a very upset, very sad, very sort of angry, unhappy person. And I got that from her music sometimes. But it didn't seem to be everything that was reflected in the music. And so I was wondering, is this just Patricia Taxxon now? I mean, she's very recently transitioned to being a woman and changed her name from Eric to Patricia. So is this just a reaction to that? Is this just somebody who's forced into a position of having to defend her existence and the frustration that comes there within? I don't know. But I stopped following and stopped reading her tweets because it was really coloring the way that I felt about her music. And it made me really sad because, in this weird parasocial relationship you have with musicians, and I suppose Twitter celebrities or YouTube celebrities, when you feel human pain, it's hard to know how to react to it. It's hard to know how to help because I can't help. I don't know her. I don't know her friends. I don't know her family. I don't know anything except what she shares with me and what I choose to consume of what she shares with me. I chose the word consume, reasons I'll get into later. So with this mistake, I was becoming concerned. And when this album came out, I was like, ooh, the cover is this really sad picture of a dog. And it's called Foley. And I was trying to figure out, does that just mean it's a Foley artist who makes sounds? Makes sounds for movies, if someone's hitting somebody in a movie, there's someone with a microphone hitting a piece of meat, right? That's a classic example. Or is this more like Matt Foley from Saturday Night Live? Down by a van in the river! That whole, very sad person who feels like he's not succeeded at life. Or is it neither? I don't know. But it seemed quite sad. And then I clicked on Bandcamp. I clicked on the album, and she always has a little tagline that describes the album. She comes out with an album every month, so there's a little sort of description of what it is. And the description that she gave was 3 words: someone help me. So, it turns out my initial impression from Twitter was correct, and she has released probably her best album since Victory Lap. This is maybe my favorite Patricia Taxxon album. And I realized that this is not a kind of vague, someone please help me. I think she really means it. I think she's really looking for help. So I have some ideas. If you're watching, if you're friends with Patricia or whatever, I have some ideas. I'll get to them after the review. But I do have ideas of how I could potentially help or give advice. See, I'm like an old guy. you know? I got wisdom from having been, you know, young and in pain. Not the same pain. All pain's different. Anyway, I'll get to that later. Let's actually go through the album. It starts off with the title track, and that's going to be my stamp. It's probably not my favorite track on the album, but it's the most exemplary of the really dark soundscape of this album. He takes, excuse me, strike one. She takes her voice and sings like her usual kind of high voice is sort of in the distance, and then her voice is really distorted low, and there's this kind of beautiful distorted drum beat with a nice clear keyboard over it. And these lyrics are very, very upsetting. She talks about having her heart break the rib cage. That's a really unpleasant concept. And it's sort of, there's another track on the album called Breastbone, and there's a certain amount of what I would call body horror in this album. I mean, this image, this recurring image of breastbone. Actually, I'll jump ahead to Breastbone. Breastbone's this very unsettling track where it actually, the music sounds like a Foley artist is recording somebody almost falling through ice. Like slipping on ice and then breaking through and falling under frozen ice and dying. And the lyrics emphasize that. Right? Someone help me, I swam too far. So I don't know. I don't know what the relationship is between these kind of body horror images and the difficulty of transitioning or of defending your transition or whatever it is. I think there's a connection there, but I'm not confident enough, I know enough to make that connection convincingly. Except to say that it is definitely an element of this record that makes it quite unsettling. So let's listen to a little bit of it. Just listen to how great this distorted drum beat is, how well she uses her voice on kind of both levels. I'm sort of thinking in the back, like, of my head, you know, like, should I go back and edit the time where I mistakenly used the wrong pronoun? I'm not going to, because I think it's important to be imperfect and to acknowledge your imperfections and then correct them and then apologize for when you were imperfect. That's why I'm not editing it out. That was my mistake, and I'm learning, right? What if we all did that? What if we all just made mistakes, admitted it, and then moved on? What a world. That'd be awesome. Okay, anyways, let's get to Foley by Patricia Taxxon. You hear the nice drum there underneath? And all throughout the record, there's this great level of distortion and real haunting sadness throughout. How do I hit stop on this? Jeez. Okay. How do I hit stop on this? All right. The next track is called Springtime is Here. It's kind of a mournful electronic dirge. This album is released in winter. Her albums are very much associated with the seasons. I mean, she releases an album every month, so it's very intentional, I think, calling a song Springtime is Here when she knows it will be produced, released, and consumed in the winter. So I think the notes that I took from this is sounds like a soundtrack to Rock Bottom, like just a really sad moment, and this is the soundtrack to that. I would not listen to this record if you're not feeling in a good mood. The next track is that Breastbone one I've already discussed. Yikes, that was one word I used. I'm actually going to play you because one nice thing about Patricia Taxxon is she doesn't copyright strike anything. So I could just play it. Just, do you hear the sound of like falling through ice? Do you hear that? Yeah, I'll go a little bit further on it. Right, that sound? Oh. Okay. And then it's got the whole bit about someone help me. The next track is called Skin Safe, which It's sort of the weakest track on the album for me. It's the most produced. It's maybe the most Taxxon-ish in the way that we associate with a little bit more of just the higher register of her voice. Lots of different beats. It's got the amen break in there somewhere. But it's kind of like sort of borderline rapping. It's not great. I like the lyric, will this godforsaken village keep my skin safe? Again, in this sort of body horror area, like the idea of your skin not being safe. I assume this is a reference to her transition and the relationship that the village or society has to this transition. I hope that when the scholarship settles on this era, when we're talking about the culture coming to terms with trans rights and basically ignoring or oppressing for human existence up until relatively recently, I hope that this album is part of the canon. I think it's really there. I think a lot of the pain that is felt is really well expressed here, much better expressed than it is on Twitter. And just the way these things are said, like this discussion of feeling, is your skin safe? And this song is funny because I wrote down all the emotions that I was sensing while I was listening to the song. And I heard anger and I heard hatred, but then really what I heard was fear. Like, she seems really afraid and really, like, hurt. And I think this is one of the best explanations or expressions of that fear. The fear of being young, trans, and in the world as it exists right now. The next track is along that same line, Deconstruct, where she asked the question, if I die, would I be a woman in heaven or would I be asleep, not knowing what it's like to be alive? And that's a really good poem. That's a really painful thing to hear, to think. I don't like, again, parasocial relationship. Maybe Patricia Taxxon is a complete jerk. I don't know. But I don't feel that. I feel some sort of connection through her music. I don't like people that I like talking about dying. It makes me upset. Maybe because people in my life have died. But again, this pain really comes through. And it's interesting because it follows nicely. In the previous song, she's talking about society accepting her as a woman. And then this is sort of accepting whether or not the transcendental, the divine, whatever form it is, will accept her. And then there's a strange love song, Senorita. I don't know. I don't. Maybe she should have saved this for December. I don't know. It seems to kind of come out of nowhere. Maybe it's a song about feeling like a pretty woman who's being picked up. I couldn't quite figure it out on first listen. This is a first listen new music review show, so I'm not quite sure about that. Then there's a super long song called I, which I like. It's kind of like a nice mixture between triumphant and ominous. And then it ends with the track Jailbreak. And Jailbreak is, for somebody who, again, I say this quite often, for somebody who releases an album a month, her stuff is really well put together. And there's a real flow and a real structure to this record. Because this is actually a moment of hope. It's this line, Patricia comes as herself, repeated over and over again. And it feels like something hopeful. You know, I'm going to play a little bit of this for you too, just because I can, and because I want you to hear a little bit of the hope here that sneaks its way onto the album after so much sadness. So it's almost like kind of like a housey, happy anthem with this line, Patricia comes as herself, over and over again. So there it is. An excellent album. I'm very happy. Looking back at it, I really actually didn't like The Best Day very much. I gave it a generally positive review because I don't see Taxxon albums. I don't review them the same way I review other ones because there's so much of it. So I didn't hate it, but I was definitely feeling like, I hope that she doesn't keep kind of going in this direction. And she went in a different direction. I think it's quite great. So, time for trying to help Patricia Taxxon. She says, someone please help, or someone help me. So there's a couple things. One thing's going to be tangible. The other thing's going to be sort of spiritual. The sort of spiritual advice is based on what I see on Twitter. Maybe you should get off of Twitter. Because I think you have a platform and you're very visible. And so I'm sure you feel a certain level of obligation to serve and to fight the fight for trans rights, which I think is important. But I'm not sure it's healthy for you to fight that fight, the global fight, the social fight, while you're still working through it for yourself and trying to gain acceptance for yourself as a human being. And I worry about the psychological impact of having to fight for your existence as a category of human being while also fighting for your existence as an individual. This is, I believe, kind of a new problem. Like, I don't think this problem is more than 10 years old, given social media and the way that it's spread. But it could be, and I don't know, that it's tearing you apart to have to fight the big fight and the personal fight. You know, maybe just take a break and work on yourself, help yourself feel better. And then when you come out on the other side of this sort of like process, then you can make the fight, the big fight, when you feel happier with yourself. I don't know, maybe not. And this is the other thing, and this is crazy, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But I'm an old man. I'm 42 years old, which makes me an old man, and I love physical media, okay? I mean, look behind me. Look at all those books. I mean, you know what's in here even? Do you know what's in here? These are all hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of CDs, okay? I'm a physical media guy, all right? We got George Michael. We got Master P, Madonna, okay? I got it all, okay? And Patricia Taxxon doesn't have any physical media, right? She just doesn't have any, you know? And I'm thinking about the end of the year, and I've been talking for a long time about making my taxonomy video, where I'm going to do the best of 2019. I'm going to make a sort of mix in my head of her best work and just sort of put it out as a video and treat that as one album. Because I don't think any one of her albums is going to break into my top 10. But I think if I construct a kind of playlist, a kind of greatest hits of Patricia Taxxon, that would break it into the top 10. But the problem is, you know, this is my current favorite album of the year, Andrew Bird, my finest work yet. You know, it's all available on vinyl. You can get it all. Like, you can own it. You can hold on to it, like a dumb Generation Xer wants to do. So here's what I'm offering. I will bankroll 100 albums. So, I don't know, up to $2,000? I'll do it. Like, just send me the bill. You can make like 100 albums, usually for $1,500, you know, like with the cover. And you can press the vinyl and anything you want. You fill it with whatever music you want to fill it with. And I'll just pay for it. And I don't need to be mentioned. I don't need my name anywhere. You don't ever even need to credit me. But let me make it for you, and then you can sell it or give it away or burn it or do whatever you want. But I think you have so much great art in you that if you focus on even more on your art, that will help you. And I don't know, I'm a bourgeois pig. I have a middle-class job. I live in the suburbs. I have a Star Wars collection worth thousands and thousands of dollars. So I'll just sell some Star Wars stuff. And I'll do it to help make a Patricia Taxxon album. Okay? So if you're interested and you're watching, or someone's watching for you, just put interested. And I'll contact you on Twitter or whatever, ironically. Or you can contact me. All right? So there's my offer. 100 albums, 100 actual vinyl records made by Patricia Taxxon. And she can do whatever the hell she wants with them. But I want to make it happen. Okay, that's being a patron as opposed to a Patreon. I don't understand Patreon. It seems weird to me. Okay, all right. Well, in any event that works, wouldn't that be fun? Fans of my show who also like Patricia Taxxon, to be able to like get an actual physical copy of a Patricia Taxxon album? I don't know. So cool. And until next time, for Madonna. And for the original soundtrack to Mortal Kombat, I bought this when it came out. Mortal Kombat. You know, there's the camera.